And I think most important, and this is where I really hope we can do a deep dive, there can't be a rule for everything, right? And who wants to work for a company where there's a rule for everything? That doesn't sound like so much fun. So what do we do? What guides us when we face an ethical dilemma and an obvious solution is not at hand? What are the forces that can act upon our behavior that can move us in the right or wrong way when it comes to making an ethical decision? Because I think if we're not careful, risk can sneak up on us. And there's a great book, and Umut and I are going to write an article, so I'll list all these books, called The Behavioral Code. The author is a law professor and a social psychologist, and what he says is, we way overrate how ethical we are. And if we confront an ethical dilemma, we way overscore how well we did. So I think we need to take a look at some of these behavioral forces so you can help the people on your teams to make sure that risk doesn't sneak up on them.
Okay. So, I mean, just to have an allegory, I mean, you mentioned, so you were selling these bulletproof vests, etc. But, I mean, none of us, I mean, the employees, we are bulletproof people. So if we violate, right, so the rules. So this is also a dilemma, let's say, I can tell to you. But an effective compliance program definitely could be a good example of a firm shield, right, to protect you as well. So why you didn't call and ask for a counseling, for a support from someone, I mean, from your company? So what was the greatest influence in your decision not to take this help?
It sounds so easy. Why didn't you just pick up the phone? How many companies here have, I have to just see, have speak-up lines or helplines? Okay, that's great. So let's talk about why I didn't pick up the phone. I think the first thing I'm thinking is if I keep calling the company saying that I'm confused, that I'm struggling, and asking how am I supposed to succeed without sacrificing integrity, I think at some point, and again, this is my mindset, I'm thinking they might say, you know, Richard, maybe this job isn't for you, right? Maybe we need someone with more international sales experience that will understand how to act in these circumstances. So I didn't want to lose my job, and I also didn't want to lose this opportunity, because I know if I'm calling in, that's the end of this big public sector opportunity. So that's why I didn't pick up the phone, but you know what I did is I asked myself the wrong question. And I said, with all these big sales that I'm making, I'm successful year one, the company's thrilled, do they really want to know what it's like out here? And I decided on their behalf that they didn't. So here's the thing about speaking up, and there's so much research about this. Every part of our DNA does not want to speak up.
Oh, definitely, very valid point. I mean, the ethics ambassadors, well, that was actually maybe 10 years ago how I started my compliance career as well. So, and it makes the compliance, ethics and compliance function makes you really visible in the organization. So as you said, people might be more comfortable to speak to the peers, okay? So, and some more trustable people can convey them to the right people to speak their emotions or their concerns. So because they all may not be definitely fully skilled or fully competent to give a response, but they may be a facilitator for them. So this is definitely how it works.
That's a great point. The compliance ambassadors are a lot less scarier than the compliance team.
Exactly.
And they're a lot more relatable.
And yeah, I mean, and even though we all say that we have an open door policy, you come to me, see me, etc. So we are one person, two people, five people. So how many people will see us physically? It's impossible. And by the way, we survived a COVID period. All the doors were closed. Yeah. We were only connected virtually. So it doesn't matter. So having the people in your organization going to the roots, going to the inside, okay, this is a very, very effective way, definitely. And every day we make multiple decisions, so some of them quickly taken, some of them not considered the midterm, long-term results. And having such people in the organization definitely will mitigate and minimize the risks.
Yeah, there is so much research out there that hitting the brakes, making slower decisions, bringing in outside points of view, lead to more ethical outcomes. It doesn't mean you have to delay something forever, but slower decisions, asking the opinion of others, drives ethical outcomes.
Great. So you are, as mentioned, an important voice to the compliant community, definitely, and highly educated person. And to ask again another honest question here. So were you losing any sleep during these 10 years? So this is very important. And were you thinking about the consequences of breaking the rules of the victims? So, and if so, how we can change our mindset?
A couple of thoughts on that. And I started losing sleep when I got a call from the Department of Justice, but I wasn't losing sleep before then. And this was an illusion, because here I am, this picture is in India, I'm isolated. Isolation is one of the top 5 reasons why we can have an ethical collapse. I'm successful, but I'm putting everyone at risk. I didn't think how ethics and integrity, how reputation is a collective responsibility. And Mentesh mentioned this about having values as your guide. I thought it was a win-win. I'm selling life-saving products. Countries are getting great technology. I'm making my goals, my rewards, the company's happy, my counterparties are happy, and in some parts of the world, the public official who might be paid at a poverty wage gets a little something to make ends meet. It was, to me, it felt like a win-win.
Exactly.
I wasn't thinking about the victims, right? And you know, Vanessa, she was at the International Anti-Corruption Conference in Lithuania. I was there a few months ago. All it was about was the victims of corruption, right? How corruption robs society of good governance, economic development, human rights. I wasn't thinking about the ethical consequences of my conduct, right? I wasn't thinking about society, the communities that I was serving, and most regretfully, I wasn't thinking about my own health, family, liberty, and welfare. And I have seen in my current work, so many more companies now are using values to drive their codes of conduct, not just policies, rules, and procedures, because there's a book called Blind Spots, big surprise, that says if your ethics and compliance program is just about policies, rules, and procedures, that it can distort decision-making instead of helping it, because people might think, oh, there's not a rule for this, that means I can do it. And we know what that ends up in, lawful but awful decision-making. And that's the reputation part that can really get damaged. There's a big leadership disconnect. So senior level managers think that they have a great culture and a great organization 2.5 times more than people in the middle who think that the culture is not so great. And when you go to the front lines of operations, people think the culture is even worse, right? So be careful about, again, who we're talking to, who we're listening to. Those middle-level managers and frontline managers might not think that things are as good as top-line managers. Are you talking to them? and watch out for Gen Z, okay? Of this survey data, Gen Zers, and I'm not exactly sure how that's defined other than knowing that I'm not a Gen Zer, but they are 2.5 times more likely to violate or circumvent a policy, rule, or procedure. And they are 2.5 times more likely to have already engaged in misconduct. Now, we're still trying to figure out why Gen Zers, because I think instinctively we wouldn't think that that's what they're doing, but this data is troubling. So look out and try to get your younger people involved. Let them know more about why of compliance, why you have these policies, rules, and procedures, so they don't necessarily view them as just roadblocks and slowing them down. Get them involved in understanding the why you have these rules, that they're there to protect them.